Hey, this is Ihab. Here is a quick demo for creating a turntable without eases. So the main problem that you would get when you create a turntable is that by default there are eases on the keys. So when you create the turntable, it's gonna ease in and out. And for one loop that is interesting, but for an object that you would like to keep looping, it's gonna make it uh, feel uncomfortable for the audience, and it would be a lot less inviting in a nutshell. So if I'm creating a turntable for this object, first of all, I would make very sure that my object is centered around a one pivot that is centered perfectly, almost perfectly. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to get the very precise depending how many objects you have. But because that's going to rotate and you want to make sure that it's in the center. So if I want to create a turntable for this, I would go to the timeline here. And if I want to if I hit S, that's going to save everything. Instead, what I would do is the E is the button for rotation, right? So if I hit Shift, then E, that's going to key only the rotation. That's going to make it a lot easier for you when you go to the graph editor to edit the animation keys. So this way you would only have 3 keys instead of keying all of these attributes. So I want to make it, basically we're going to render in 24 frames per hour per second. Yeah, per hour, as if it's a driving car. So 24 frames per hour, that means 24 frames per second, that means that it's going to be, if I were to go to 240, number 240, let me go and adjust the display and go here. Then what I need is the range slider. So on the timeline, this is the key that we are seeing here, but this is the beginning of the full length. When we squash down the time range, that doesn't change the minimum or the maximum that we have originally. But this is the number that is going to display what is the very minimum we have, and this is what is the maximum that we have. So here I would like to make it 240 as the maximum, and then I would either stretch it from there, or I would just type in here 240, asking the time range to show until 240, and then that's going to give me the full length. So I keyed this car on this key, and then I would go here to 240, and then I could either manually go and sort of key it, or I would give it 360 degrees, and then hit Shift E again. If you have the auto key for auto keying the animation, then all you have to do is just to make that rotation, and it's gonna save. But in case you didn't, then you would have to hit Shift and E. So if I play now, it's going to have that ease in the beginning. So I want to lose that, so it's gonna give me, therefore, the ideal turn. Additionally, one thing to keep in mind, that right mouse button on the time range here, you click on playback speed. You want to make sure it's real time, because if you play every frame, it would give you a different result of what it should be. Sometimes it displays it much faster depending on the geometry that you have and all that. So make sure you play real time. So if I want to make a play blast of this with the screen space ambient occlusion, maybe I would turn the screen resolution just to make sure that I frame things properly and all that. And now what I need to do is going to the if you go to the panels, and then you go to panel, what we need is the graph editor. The graph editor is what's going to show the animation on this object. So I have it here. you can go to 4 views or whatever you want, and then you can choose one of them. Go to panels and then panel, and then you go to graph editor, which is this one. So if I hit F, just like in Maya, F it's going to frame things. Let me undo the camera move by using the left bracket. So you see here, this is the eases that I was talking about. This is by default, every animation key is going to have eases until we modify it. Until we go here, if I click on, let me enlarge this. Okay, so if you highlight it here, it's going to show, let's see, free tangent, wait, then maybe flat tangents. It's kind of flat tangent anyway. Yeah, so step tangents is going to move only one frame, and then that's what's called stepping, or more likely it's what animators use for blocking, and it's just gonna move from one posture to another. So what I need to do is instead of these, if you go here to the eases, that's what's going to create the eases, but instead we're going to go with a, let's see here, linear tangents. So when we select it and make those tangents to be just linear, that's going to make the eases to be gone. So now when I go back, hit spacebar and then play again, it's going to play with a constant speed, and that makes a perfect scenario for looping. And now you can see as it's playing, you don't really feel the looping, right?